That was David Bowie, Sound and Vision. I was listening to Low. Great album, and it was really when he was sort of thinking of where his career was going, it kind of inspired me to, upon the invitation, thank you for inviting me, Jerome, and everyone at Wallifornia, to speak. And we thought it would be interesting, perhaps, to share a little bit of who we are, where we come from. So here I am. For us, it's really the sound. Once you love the sound, you have a vision, and I'm managing partner along with Rishi Patel. We're both here today, so we look forward to meeting, getting to know you all, and it's a lovely sized event so that we really do have some time together. So it started for me as a young boy. I loved the sound. I just loved music. I was buying records, and I was playing them at school parties. So all through my life, luckily I was pretty good at school. I was good in mathematics, and growing up in Canada, I had my passion, and I kind of, like everyone, worked my way up, and I ultimately got a degree in mathematics and statistics, but it was always my hobby, my passion, the love of music, the sound. So part of me is like, wow, looks like I can get a real job, but I want to follow my dreams. So, but how do I do that? How do I make a living? And a lot of us here with startups, we're in that same moment. You know, you've got an idea, and you're here to pitch your idea and hopefully get some money or figure out a way how to hopefully make a living at what you do. So in the older days, I'd have to say, like all old people do, it was even tougher. You got it easy now. So I had to make a decision. Upon graduating, I really had to make a decision. I couldn't do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I decided to follow my dreams. So I kind of like to say, especially when I'm talking to my professional friends, instead of work in a bank or something, I wanted to join the circus because the circus is a lot more fun. So I equate being an entrepreneur to joining the circus because that's where the action is. So I traveled a little bit, and just leading up to running off to join the circus, I traveled to follow the records that I loved. I went to Detroit where they were making techno, and I was playing music from all over the world, and DJ culture, electronic culture was really proliferating. In fact, Belgium, it's great to be in Belgium because this is one of the scenes that before I actually got here was inspiring me, R&S Records, and before that the new beat music. So Belgium plays a lot in making my dreams, you know, or at least me trying to chase and follow my dreams. Upon meeting Richie Houghton, Detroit was really one of the hotbeds of music with technology, and their music was called techno. We believed in samplers and computers and expressing ourselves through computers. And I think techno has served us very well because, you know, having that component of believing in technology, I think, is part of who we are and how we got here. So, funny thing happened. We ran off to join the circus, made a few records with Rich under +8, and be careful what you wish for. And I say this to people with startups. The best thing that can happen to you is outright failure or outright success, because managing success is really tough. So in retrospect, I can say these, and these bullet points are sort of a synopsis. In the old days, we didn't really take a lot of photos, and actually, a lot of those photos would probably get us into trouble, so I'm just sticking to bullet point captions here. Yeah, we were really busy. We were making money, and it's hard when you're getting to that next level of managing and just dealing with the new reality. So really quite a challenge because you think you know, but you don't know, and that's an issue that arises with a lot of startups and a lot of careers. So you've reached that next rung on the ladder, and you're quite successful, or you think you are, but you have to come to terms with it. You have to manage your success, and that's again an interesting note that we all have to come through. So managing the circus is really tough because when you're on a rise, you want to have people come and help you, but you also don't know how to handle all of your success. So do you choose a manager? Do you hire a manager? Do you do it all yourself? You know, how do you grow your group? The challenge of any business. So when you have to make your money in a creative way, and you're having a good time, and the money comes rather easily, or or it just comes upon you, how do you address your day-to-day events? Because managing your accounts, your affairs, your contracts, your IP, it's one thing. It's very easy to gloss over these issues because you just hope it will fit or you hope someone else will do it. But the reality is you're creating and breaking new ground, and yet you need to make sure that you don't fumble anything. So over the course of the 90s, we really had to deal with all that came, and it was pretty good. So the first few years, we had a good time. We had a good party. We had shoe boxes full of receipts that within a few years, I realized, well, we better start taking care of these shoe boxes full of receipts, actually learn how to run a real company, get this under order, learn to pay taxes, file, all the boring things that comes with success, that when you're a rock star, you're like, that's the last thing you want to do after you party all night. The last thing you want to do is make sure that you're counting all of your receipts, where the money is, what your net accounts are, and filing all these things. These are boring things that are better left to other people, but these are things that can kick you in the ass, so to speak. So over the course of the 90s, we had the party for the first few years, but we grudgingly woke up and applied ourselves. Now, I said earlier, can I get some water, please? I said earlier that, thank you. So after a few years of partying, we applied ourselves, and by the end of the 90s, we actually owned our own vinyl plant with Rich. So we came a long way from going off to join the circus, where we literally organically evolved and integrated our company to the point where we had our own vinyl manufacturing, which in those days, vinyl was not very relevant to the broader world. So people like, what do you do? You're DJs. And what else do you do? Well, we're kind of businessmen. We have a vinyl plant. Vinyl, people still make vinyl? Yeah, actually. We have a plant that we could do almost a couple million in capacity. So we took advantage of all of our opportunities and had everything under our control, which I think is important for a company if you can, address all of your components. And if they're significant enough or you have the wherewithal, you want to kind of absorb that. So I come from that school, or at least I evolved from that school of owning and being master of your own destiny. So we had about 30 employees. Our own vinyl, we were then manufacturing for not just ourselves but other people and financing other people. Because, if I can finance myself and I have a little bit of money left over, well, you can come to me and I'll finance your record. So I'm like, wow, we were kind of rock star DJs affording the ability to refunnel our money into our businesses and then have money for other people. Unfortunately, the 90s, as good as it was, and we carved out our own little niche in an analog hole that no one knew existed, the 90s ended with a big bang, at least when it comes to the world as we knew it. The internet came, and there's no looking back. The internet changed everything, and it certainly changed music. So just when we thought we had it made, we had to sort of deal with the new reality of 2000. So in the music world, this has been said before. A lot of what I'm saying, just for the sake of bullet points, is, I think, kind of obvious, but I think these are interesting talking points to see the steps that we experienced and a lot of people have experienced. So old world record labels like us, we would make a vinyl, we would make a CD, and we'd have a component. Life was simple. We were making analog dollars rather inefficiently. Vinyls were roughly 10 units of currency, 10 euros, $10. CDs were pushing $20, $30, but the consumers weren't really happy. And so certainly when it came to music, the internet exploded those analog dollars into digital pennies. And actually, a lot of those pennies were zero. We talk about some of the music companies now, the streaming, the units of royalties per items. It's not that good now, but companies like Napster, this is how much we got. So that was kind of really frustrating. If you're used to making, even on a bad statement, $500, a few $1,000s, we were getting zero from the internet. And a lot of companies went kind of kicking and screaming, but it was a rough time. A lot of people went bankrupt. A lot of old school companies who didn't kind of suck it up Luckily, we were DJing, and DJing was carrying us through. Rich Houghton and I, who were still, pretty relevant and prominent, and sticking to techno, believing in a techno world and techno future. So we're in it for life. Like, we love music, we love the sound. So we had to just kind of keep figuring out. I think we really were lucky that DJing afforded that living. So we continued to invest, and I was really fixated on moving forward. I kind of paused. I split up with Rich, and running a label is really tough. It's tough when you have a warehouse making widgets, stocking widgets, shipping records all over the world. Really tedious stuff. Again, when you're rocking all night VIP, drinking champagne, the last thing you want to do is go to a warehouse, inbox a bunch of records, and ship them places. And I had to do that occasionally. I guess that's the version of keeping it real and keeping your feet to the ground. So we were fixated on trying to understand where these new revenue streams would come from. And again, that's very important in any business. You need to make some money. A pipe dream is a pipe dream, and if you don't figure out how to make money, well, you're going to have to get a real job, and it's probably going to be a boring one, right? So here's my first break, because believing in technology, we were already people, but from traveling and meeting people were approaching us with ideas. We're always open to ideas. I always like a good conversation with someone in a nightclub, and you'll find that as people drink late at night, everyone's full of ideas. Usually I would try to follow up in the morning, say, hey, that idea we talked about? Let's take it forward. Well, this idea didn't happen in a nightclub, but it came to our attention that a few people, not too far away from here, based in Holland, actually, they're like, why do you DJs play vinyl? Like, they're so heavy, they're so big, and there's digital files now. I'm like, okay, keep talking. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, why don't you just play MP3s? And I'm like, well, listen, unless you've ever DJ'd, the best way to control and feel a record, at least in the first era of DJs, DJs are virtuosos. There's a real artistry to controlling a vinyl and a turntable. And they're like, really? Okay, well, great. We've got the solution. Why don't we use a turntable or a disc controller to control an MP3? I'm like, wow. Okay, I'm flying over there. So I literally hopped on a plane, flew through Schiphol, and I went there. I'm like, nice to meet you. I just want to, touch this thing. And I touched it. It was from, just a mainframe desktop computer, and it was about an 80 millisecond delay, and this was around 2000. I'm like, wow, this changes everything. I thought that it was inevitable that DJs are going to play digital files. So I called Rich Houghton, called a few other friends, Kuroshin Sari, who's one of the first people to represent the electronic community, first electronic member on the board of the Grammys. So slowly our world is getting, over the last decade or two, a little bit of recognition within the broader scope of the music world. So Final Scratch became a reality, but it was almost ahead of its time in that some DJs, some of the old DJs, like for me, it was like discovering a car. A lot of DJs like to drive a horse and buggy, and they like to play vinyl. And I'm old enough, and I certainly appreciate playing vinyl. So it was very difficult getting traction. We had envisioned making 10,000 units, and it's funny, 10,000 units in almost any business, especially hardware, is a magic number. Whether it's an electric car, or 10,000 units just seems to be a number that hardware people gravitate to, because that's a good, solid number. So we had envisioned one year doing at least 10,000 units. But it wasn't really until some very progressive DJs started using the technology that until we had content available, it was really difficult for people to have their vinyl record it, and play it back. So a DJ is one of the laziest animals that exists. At least a guitar player or a band will go and they'll do a sound check. But DJs, you just show up, you plug in, and you play. So life is pretty good if you're a DJ, because you really technically don't have to work. You just show up, and that's it. So no DJ was recording, preparing. So reached out to a bunch of other people who were first movers, and they're like, John, like, we need to come together and bring content to Tractor Scratch, and Pioneer had also perfected digital playback. They had perfected the CDJ. So anyone who's into DJ culture has seen or may recall that DJs are bringing laptop into their DJ booths, and the CDJs were also there to play digital files. So came together with another group, and we founded Beatport. At the end of 2003, we launched in 2004. And that's so that's just close to 4 years after Tractor Scratch. But then Beatport was that last piece of the puzzle. In the old days, we don't talk about this anymore, but people used to talk about the 80-20 tail. And that as independents, we thought we were 20% of the long tail. And Beatport cobbled that together because there was no major label content. It was all an amalgamation of global independence. And I'd like to think that Beatport, through the internet, really brought together the underground electronic community. And to the point that, when I left 9 years after, we were generating $50 million a year in sales. We honestly had a very, early on, we had a very frank discussion. And this is also very important in business, having a discussion and understanding, what a fair market value, what the pie is, what the slices are worth, and who should get them. So when I was at the table, out of that $50 million, Beatport argued for 40%, and a lot of people like 40%. Apple takes 30. Well, we can't make this company work at 40%, at 30%. We need 40%. But let's be very clear. Beatport, actually, and with great pride, and I do want to touch upon this because I think artists deserve to get paid. And I viewed that a lot of people who were buying records at $10. I argued that an artist should get $2 or $2.50 for exclusives. To me, and I've said this on stage before, if you are touched by a song, it's the equivalent of buying a cup of coffee for your friends. Who would not pay $2 or $2.50 for a moment, a lovely taste of coffee or a lovely feeling from a song? So I hung my hat on that, and even though we were going to an all-you-can-eat economy of all these, $10 all-you-can-eat buffets of really unfulfilling food, I thought that was very important. And we generated more per unit royalty than ever before. So on a 60-40 split on an exclusive track, the label and the artist would get $1.50. And the good labels, who were honest and altruistic, were doing 50-50 splits. So, wow, whatever happened to Internet 1.0 and Music 1.0, where the artist used to make 75 cents a track? And as an underground artist, if I sold 10,000 units, holy crap, I just got a $7,500 check. I can tell you that a lot of the bigger companies, and I've gone on to get hundreds of thousands of streams. I think I've done over 1 million. I don't think I've ever made any much royalties as a musician. So anyways, back to reality. That's why I'm a businessman, because I'm not making money as an artist. So in the daytime, I took what little money I had and I tried to invest it. So Beatport's really good. So I'm not here to gloss about the past, but it's an interesting case study of at the time, we fought hard and we had a viable business, and that's very important in business. You have to fight for your beliefs, and it's how you convey your thoughts and how you can understand, grab some money, generate some money, make some money, pay it out, and I think that's a virtuous cycle. So I think a little bit of altruism goes a long way, and especially people like ourselves who have a history, we care about the ecosystem. It's very important. And we continue to invest in the things that we believe in and we can add value to. So kind of the end bit of this story is it took so long, and not every company goes from launch to, oh dear, is my timer, my timing is good here? Okay, good. No, sorry, I just saw a flashing light here, forgive me. So with Tractor Scratch, ultimately, Native Instruments, our partner, went on to go into hardware, and it was their first hardware piece. And a lot of people may know you on how successful they were. And so they went on their own way. We ended up taking, a royalty, and then subsequently, these are all business deals that, happy to share later. But it was like Native taking Tractor Scratch and showing that the controllers could be viable. They went on to be a fantastically successful company. One of the things I missed out on, I remember they invited us to participate, and we were talking with Fred, who's doing another panel. What's the biggest miss you've ever had? And had a chance to invest in Native. I'm a little bit shy on hardware, but they went on to be a $100 million company. So even though I'm telling you I know and I saw the vision, I can't claim to have seen everything coming. Who'd have thought that a software company go on to do over 100 million in sales? So very proud to know them. Missed that boat. Once I had started investing, it dawned on me. But it's being able to articulate an idea. Once you've done something, failed or succeeded, how can you articulate and understand? Put it in your pocket and move forward. So for me, having invested above and beyond myself, the whole mantra, and now it's very clear. Managing the managers. I was a guy who brought some visions to reality along with some partners, but when you start saving some money, you have to learn when to pass it off, when to hire a professional manager, and in a perfect world, and this is sort of what we do as investors, when we see people, ideas, we want to manage that asset. So we go in, Rishi and I will sit on a board, we'll advise, we'll be active investors, and we'll try to use our experience and expertise to manage the managers. So one way or another, someone's got to do the job. You may bring your company to reality, and you also have to be wise enough to look in the mirror and go, have I done my job? Is it time to pass on the baton and run the relay race? But this concept is oh so important because there's a best before date. If you pass your best before date as a creative person, and you realize that maybe you don't like managing, it's the time to pass on the baton, because otherwise the race doesn't get run and go to the next level. So these concepts are very important. This is something that dawned on me that is very clear to me now. It's as simple as understanding, but never the timing is always difficult, when to start managing the managers and pass the baton. In 2013, we had an offer that at the board we could not refuse. Company called SFX, and it's another great casebook study in what to do and what not to do in business. Pooled together just under $300 million. Actually, my dear partner Rishi, the last deal he did on Wall Street before I'd met him, he was a financier who loved music. Together with Jefferies, UBS, and Deutsche Bank, they raised just under $300 million for a very interesting character called Robert Sillerman to buy a bunch of assets. Awakenings, or ID&T, I think Tomorrowland, so Belgium group, Beatport, and we took the money. And upon meeting them, upon understanding some more esoteric financing, like the debt that Bob Sillerman had, thankfully from Rishi, so I got free financial lessons from him, I decided to kind of take my money and sell my shares. And these sowed the seeds for +8. Along with Rich Haughton, it was upon meeting Rishi that we thought we could take our opportunities to the next level. So together, we came to form +8, an extension of +8 Records. So when I met Rich, the only way we knew how to push the parameters was to start a label called +8 Records, and that +8 comes from the turntable. The only way I knew how to push the limits were to play my music at +8. +8 Equity Partners has brought together leading artists, electronic artists, impresarios, and the third component are people who love this culture, but from high net worth families, family offices. And together we continue to pursue, in the spirit of what some of the stories I just told you, opportunities where we think we can understand, add value, and unlock things. So really, I think we're coming to an end of Music 2.0, because Beatport, I told you a romantic story of how we created a lot of per unit royalty. The reality is music is finally growing back, and we go back to those nickels and dimes. People are finding ways to pay pennies and dimes, and for the first time in a long time, the digital revenues of music are growing. Perhaps not as much as fairly as an artist. Maybe they're skewed. That's a bit of a separate conversation, but I think that conversation needs to be held continuously at these conferences. But it's clear that music is part of the fabric of our society. Music is everywhere. It hasn't been monetized very well, and that's something that I still cudgel my brain to try and unlock. That's what we try to do. That's what we're all trying to do here. You know, where is your idea fit in the fabric of society, and how do we get funding to get some revenue to unlock it? So really, it's been 3 decades. You know, I always talk a lot. I didn't have I think I talk too much, as I always do, but it's hard to condense and share stories with which to set the conversation where we're going. And 2020 is around the corner, and the whole point of this talk was, we come from the sound. We have a passion. I think everyone in the room has a passion for music, a desire to do business. So this is the first talk I've had about middle of 2019. We need a vision. So I welcome questions, discussions. We're here for a few days, but happy to keep shaping the vision. We have a strong idea of where the vision is. So today was more of a meet and greet, and really, being the old guy that I am, share some stories, in the hopes that maybe my stories may rub off, and you can have a laugh at me, or maybe an inspiration for me. But so I end that really not digging deeper, because I was given a time limit, but hopefully my stories and us coming together will start to create a vision for 2020, and we'll make a success and a better place for our community. Thank you.
Yeah.